In comparison to earlier videos, we have actually reduced the knee rolls of his saddle, which makes it easier for me to sit on him, and it interferes less with my kneecaps. Because in a previous life, Bailey was driven, he is very used to leaning into his forehand to pull the load. And for riding pony, and especially because he's such a stumbly boy, this is obviously not a good thing and quite dangerous. So we have to practice to get him off the forehand. And I'm doing that through a number of different things. One thing is starting to rein back. Another thing is to slow him down a little bit when he tries to motor on too much, because that pushes him on the forehand more. And I've also found that if I do lateral work like leg yielding and shoulder in, which he's not very good at yet, that really makes him a lot lighter in the shoulder. So that's quite a desirable thing to do. Now, you can see here how much he struggles with the rein back, and I think there's two reasons. One reason is psychological, because I would imagine that pulling a trap or a cart or something, it's not a desirable thing for a horse to go backwards. So psychologically, he may have some anxiety to do that, because he may have been punished in the past for doing that. And the other thing is, because he's got such a weak core and such a wobbly middle, it's very hard for him to actually lift up in the core and round his hindquarters a little bit to go backwards, because that's what a horse needs to do to go backwards well. And he finds that very difficult. You can also see I'm not pulling the reins when I rein him back, but he's actually fighting me. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting my hands on the pommel, so I'm not um, giving in every time he pulls forward or moves his head. I'm trying to keep my hands very steady and resist all that movement, as you can see here. So he has a steady resistance to work against, rather than kind of a forced give release like what he's doing here now. So I'm trying to avoid that. And you can also see that his foot sequence is not good. Normally, a horse should have a diagonal pair moving at the same time, so it's the same foot sequence as in trot, but obviously going backwards, and he can't do that at all. So at the moment, I'm quite happy just to have him uh, go backwards whichever way, just to get the psychology of it into his head that it's actually something that can be done, and hopefully build up a bit of strength in his core as well. Uh, with regards to the lateral work, there are a couple of problems as well. One thing is that if I'm not careful, he tends to step on his own feet. So I always have to make sure that he's kind of going probably forwards a little bit more than sideways, to get the feet out of the way of each other. And the other thing is the saddle. The saddle is probably a very comfortable trail saddle to sit in for hours, but because it is very floppy and moves quite a lot, and it's also very thick, I think it absorbs quite a few of the signals that I'm trying to give the horse with my body. So it's really difficult to get signals through to the horse. The other thing is that I find that the back of the seat comes up quite early to form the cantle, and it pushes my bottom kind of up a little bit, so I don't sit on my seat bones quite correctly, and that kind of disables me from using my seat to my best advantage. So that makes things a little bit harder with this particular saddle. But we've tried a different saddle, and it really wasn't for him. Um, I think I probably put out a video with the other saddle as well. It's much easier for me to ride, but um, he is, I think, quite uncomfortable. So very unfortunately, we had to abandon that idea. Um, so all this head tossing here is really him fighting the idea of having to go backwards, because I'm actually very passive with the reins. As you can see, I've got my hands stacked again on the cantle, and it's all him. I'm not doing anything there really with my hands. And I've just released as soon as he did the right thing and went backwards. And I'm just practicing to walk on fairly straight away after that without too much hesitation. And here you can see that his shoulder end is already getting a lot better. He's got one better side and one worse side like everyone, but with him it is actually quite profound. And here you can see that his rein back is gradually improving, but he's still struggling with the foot sequence at the moment. I'm not too worried about it. I think once he gets a bit stronger, it will come. But the conflict behavior is still there, and you can see all that side to side. That's just purely him. I've got my hands stacked on the pommel again. Here you can see that he is trying quite hard, and even though the shoulder end may not be perfect, I can feel that it does help him to come up at the front and come off the forehand. Here I'm trying to get him to slow down a little bit, to come a bit more under himself and get a bit off the forehand. And there's a few moments where you can see that that is actually quite successful. With him, one of the key elements is, especially on the left rein, that I really have to have my left leg on um, in order to keep him a bit on the straight and narrow. It stabilizes him quite a lot and stops him from wobbling. Turn, yeah, turn, 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 no, no, turn, yes, turn, good, oops, good boy, well done. Can you do it again, Bailey?